I love to watch movies. I'm fairly selective about movies, and if you want to ask me later on what was the last I seen was really good, I'll tell you about it. But it doesn't fit this morning. But I enjoy watching movies a lot. How many of you like thrillers? Okay, it's kind of funny. We think of thriller and you think of like a horror movie, right? But a thriller is not necessarily a horror movie. I looked up, and it has to do with the excitement and the surprise that is within a movie or a play. Something within the plot really, shocks you, and so it doesn't have to be necessarily scary to be a thriller. And I looked it up because the word was used in a way that I thought, well, that's kind of interesting in something that was written um, by a friend of mine. He is a retired minister in Tulsa, Oklahoma. His name is Terry Rush, and I say retired. He's never going to retire. He continues. I mean, the things that he puts on the web and the encouragement that he gives to people is fascinating. But I a lot of times don't share things like that. I'll read something and I'll kind of process it, look up passages of scripture and use the scriptures. But this morning I am going to share that. But he used the word the thriller in there, and so for me, I looked that up. I thought, well, that's kind of an interesting choice of word. It so fits, and so I want to share that with you. But those moments then within a movie that really shock you or really surprise you, and that's why you end up really enjoying a movie, right? Because if it's predictable, do you get interested? Sometimes if the acting is really good, right, or the writing is really good, you'll kind of stay interested. But if you figure out what's going to happen and you just know for sure that's what's going to take place, you kind of get bored with the movie. And so if you're sitting in a movie house, well, you're kind of stuck there and you're watching it. If you're at home, you might get up and do something else in the movie, and you kind of wander around and that kind of thing. And I like to go to the movies is because Radonna has to sit there and watch it with me instead of get up and going around everywhere. So, but we don't go out to the movies very often. We watch them at home most of the time. But those surprises, those shocks, those things that really excite you, what happens, and if you're listening to somebody watching a movie, and sometimes that can be the most fun about going to a movie is listening to somebody else who gasps or screams or they get excited and you hear that, and that's kind of fun. That's fun anytime if you're just sitting, if you've already watched it and then you want to watch it with somebody else and watch their reaction, right? But if the whole thing is, say if it was a thriller that was a scary thriller and it just scare, well, that kind of gets old too, doesn't it? It's that wait in between that makes that moment within the movie exciting, right? Sometimes we don't want the wait. We want the excitement right now. Or we want the surprise right now. I mean, when a mom tells the kid, not now, what's the reaction? How many times have you heard a mom tell a kid, not now, and they say, okay? No, when you hear not now, it's usually, a reaction of why, or, or a fit, or something happening that is dramatic because they don't want to wait. Where'd they learn that from? Within our current society, with all the availability of technology, we're getting worse. We don't want to wait for anything. And if you can't afford it, that's okay. Somebody will loan you the money, and you don't have to wait. There's a lot of passages of Scripture deal with waiting, and I just have a couple that I want to share this morning. One is in Psalm 27, and it's just at the last of the psalm, and the psalm has been and David writing this has been expressing seeking God in times of trouble and when enemies are out to get him. David, what that was all about. I mean, he understood that, and he wrote a song about that. But at the very end of the psalm, he says in verse 13, Psalm 27, I'm still confident of this. I will see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. Wait for the Lord, be strong, and take heart, and wait for the Lord. When we think about or dwell on or worry about what might happen, or maybe even we're just so sure it's going to happen, but we worry about when, or we worry about how, or we have the anxiety over maybe something happening in foreign countries that we wouldn't want to see happen. Or thinking about that, what good does it do? What does it accomplish? We cannot control within ourselves. We cannot control what happens in another country any more than we can control what happens in our country. Except for the influence that God gives us, the circle of people that you know, the circle of people that you touch, to show light of Jesus Christ. We sing the song sometimes, Salt and Light, and it comes from Jesus in the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew chapter 5. That we are the salt, should be tasted. We are the light, should be seen. And so here he's saying, I am still confident of this. I will see goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. David was going through some difficult times. He was being attacked, but he's saying, I am confident of this. I will still see the goodness of the Lord on earth, the land of the living. I'm not just waiting for pie in the sky by eye, but I will see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. And he says, wait for the Lord, be strong, take heart, and wait for the Lord. There are times, think about it, isn't that something about what makes life exciting is the times that you've had to wait? When you think of some of the powerful people of God, maybe Abraham and Joseph, I mean, two that just really stick out, that really had to wait all this time. They were learning in the process of this waiting, and they were waiting on God. I mean, Joseph had it kind of multiple times over. And our lives are kind of like that sometimes, right? You know, there's the ups and the downs. Well, Joseph he really had the low valleys and mountain peaks. But he waited on God to do what he was going to do. Even if it meant that he was in prison for a time, he was still waiting on God, but it didn't mean he wasn't doing anything. You know, it's not like waiting and you sit down, you fold your hands and wait. He was still active. He was involved with people, and it was his involvement with those people that God was going to work. It's kind of like a kid at Christmas. I mean, when parents in and the kid opens all the gifts Christmas Eve, and maybe it's family tradition, you know, maybe that's the plan. But say the family tradition, you know, you open your gifts on Christmas morning, and parents give in because the kids just, oh, come on, can I just open them? I want to open them tonight, and you just give in. Okay, open your presents. Then what's Christmas morning like? You know, not what it would have been, right? Get up, you know, the kids are up. Get up, it's Christmas. Everybody's excited, right? Because the wait has happened. Sometimes we miss something when we don't wait. We miss something that God has in store for us. But other times, I mean, we're forced to wait. We don't have any choice. When you think of Abraham, when you think of even David, I mean, we're reading about David. When you think of these men of God that God made wait. And in life, I mean, we wait for things. We wait to find out things. We wait to see things happen. And there are so many times that it's so exciting to see what God does that we weren't expecting. Let me read what Terry wrote, because when I read it, and I wrote him, and I said, Terry, I want to use this. And it really fits with where my mind going. And of course, he responded back, and he said, how fun, that we can do that together. Why faith in God is a thrill? First, I wish to differentiate a faith that places confidence in the activity of God versus a useless organizational believing tone that leaves adherents limp in life's challenges. The former believes with conviction, while the latter professes with much hesitation and doubt. Faith in God, read the actions in the Bible, was more off the wall at the moment rather than planned choreography of church effort. Faith is wild, absurd. The masses prefer it to tamed. God's way is not man's way. Faith in God is a thriller because great results occur when we have no verification that our action would work, except we believed He would through us. That's what He did in Jesus. The reason faith is radical is not because it's strict nor loud. It is because it defies man's obstinate desire to control. It works because it links one to a very active God, practices our faith in Him. He gets our signal that we believe, and off to work He goes. Christianity doesn't just believe God things happen. No, it instigates the God that's happening via matters like praise of Him and prayer to Him. It's one thing to try to walk by a faith that doesn't seem to go anywhere. It's a whole new world when we apply faith in God to our daily walk. Don't be moved. Stop the sour attitude. Awaken to our lively, victorious God who does everything bigger than we can comprehend. Ephesians 3:20 and 21. And beyond all that we can imagine, ask, or think, according to the power that worked in Christ when He raised Him. Now, let me look at another passage with you. And I tell you what, we'll just close with this one. I think we've had a lot to absorb this morning. I'm going to close with this one. So if the praise team wants to come up, turn to John chapter 5. Jesus had been doing some things on the Sabbath that made some people mad. They didn't believe Jesus should be doing those things on the Sabbath, considering it work. And so in John chapter 5, in verse 16, we read this. So because Jesus was doing these things on the Sabbath, the Jews persecuted Him. Jesus said to them, my Father is always at work to this very day, and I too am king. For this reason, the Jews tried all harder to kill Him. Not only was He breaking the Sabbath, but He was even calling God His own Father, making Himself equal with God. Now, what I want to see out of the passage, and I don't think it's trying to change what the passage intent is, but we have Jesus in a circumstance. He's being attacked, but He makes a statement there that we need to always be aware of. That even during those times of waiting, and we don't know what's going to happen, you can be waiting for an approval of something. You can be waiting for a result of something. You can be expecting God to react within your life that is going to make everything better. And it's during those times of waiting that we always hear ourselves say, I don't know if God is listening. I don't know if God is going to answer me. I'm struggling with my belief. That we need to recognize actually what Jesus said right here. Jesus said, my Father is always working. He was making a point about the Sabbath. But I think there's another point that we can gain from this that is probably even deeper than that. My God is always working. He's involved. Sometimes whether we like it or not. That may mean for you this morning that connects you to say, I'm not living right, and I know it. But God has been working in my life, and it convicted me. That may motivate you this morning to say, I feel better because He's still working. It motivates you in a totally different way, but hopefully let His words, let Jesus' words speak to you, and then live by it. If you need to respond, come today as we stand in.